A major announcement regarding WWE Raw, plus a WWE legend has confirmed his retirement despite not making it a big deal. And yes, we are going to talk about the conflicting stories of WWE potentially moving the Performance Center to Las Vegas. It's all coming up right here on the Ango Show. Welcome back to TAS, ladies and gentlemen. I want to kick things off with the WWE Performance Center. I thought this was interesting. Basically, you may have heard the story from WrestleVotes that WWE had a all hands on deck meeting in the headquarters, and one of the topics or one of the big takeaways from that meeting was that WWE is going to be moving the Performance Center to Las Vegas. Now, what's really interesting is almost immediately after that report came out, Sean Ross Sapp and Fightful Select came out and basically said their sources indicate that is not happening. Now, obviously, this is a very interesting story for a variety of reasons, but I don't think either sources are wrong. And I'm only speculating here, but I feel like if you know how WWE is conducting their business, it is very similar to the way in which the UFC is conducting their business. And this is largely due to the fact that TKO now is a formation of both companies. Now, if you've paid attention to the UFC, or maybe you don't pay attention to the UFC has a performance center in the United States, and then they also have one in Mexico. And we all know that WWE has like this global localization plan where WWE plans on like really having performance centers and NXTs everywhere. I'm starting to get the impression that maybe WWE isn't moving the performance center out of Orlando to Las Vegas, but instead they will have a second performance center based out of Las Vegas. And I think this could actually be a really good idea. I think there's nothing wrong with having more performance centers. And honestly, look, I'm going to say it like this. The WWE PC has been used for NXT every Tuesday for a long time. And I've been very adamant about WWE NXT remaining a studio show, but I don't think it should be in the Performance Center. Like, ideally, it should be back at Full Sail. That doesn't seem very likely. But if WWE were to create a performance center in Las Vegas, then that would allow WWE to utilize the performance center in Orlando as a film hub for everything WWE, meaning a state-of-the-art institute where you can do live episodes of NXT, you can do a whole bunch of production stuff, you can do a whole bunch of editing and voiceovers and whatever it may be, right? Green screen galore. And then I think if you do the Performance Center in Las Vegas and you relocate it to Las Vegas in the sense of like the physical Performance Center where people could come and train, I think that could be a really good thing too. Now, how redundant would it be for WWE to have a Performance Center in Las Vegas? Is there a circumstance and maybe WWE stars can go to the UFC Apex and be able to train out there as well? I don't know. But I think there could be some synergies, and it could help actually in the sense of cost cutting, because if there's a performance center where UFC and WWE stars can go to, it could make a lot of sense. You could obviously save a lot of money, but we'll see how it goes. Let me know what you guys think about that. Dave Bautista just confirmed in a new interview that he is actually retired. And I thought this was kind of crazy because quite frankly, Dave Bautista like never made a big deal out of retirement. And I feel like a lot of people do. Like we saw Sting get his like final match pay-per-view. We've seen Ric Flair have the last dance. And I mean, we've just seen so many situations where guys have like called it a career. We knew it was their retirement. Sometimes they don't even follow through with it. But Dave Bautista was talking with Chris Van Vliet. He was promoting the new Killer's Game movie. And basically on whether or not he knew WrestleMania 35 would actually be his last match, he says he did. He specifically says, I did. I just didn't tell anybody. I didn't want it to be a big deal. I didn't want to, go out there and do a tour and give a speech. I wanted to have my match and I wanted to call it a career. So I wanted to go out on my own terms. It was great. I was really proud of it. It was in New York. I lost. You got to go out on your back. This is like a dream for me. This is why it's so perfect. It's such a romantic way. Wrestlers don't get to choose the way they go out. I did. I went out on my own terms the way I wanted with the guy I want to go out with. I will never tarnish that. It's not that I don't miss it. I miss a crowd. I miss the energy of the crowd. I dream about walking out and hearing my entrance music, but I know if I do that, I will just tarnish my storybook ending, and I'm just not willing. It's always a temptation because I miss it, and every time I hear my music, I want that feeling again. It's like a drug. I just have to come to terms with my time that is now past. This is interesting, man. Dave Bautista, legend. You know, like this guy is huge, and he obviously made it pretty big into Hollywood and stuff, and that's obviously a very good thing. And really, I think it's a good thing for WWE too, right? Like this is a guy who technically never officially announced his retirement. I mean, technically, if he ever wanted to come back in and have another match, I mean, he could. But the good thing is, when Dave Bautista went on to Hollywood and actually became a big star in Hollywood, or decent size star, I don't know, I feel like he's a pretty big star in Hollywood now, but like for all intents and purposes, if WWE, you know, wants to utilize him in some fashion, he can always come back. And I feel like the big thing will be, you know, like the Hall of Fame. And you know, if he wants to get physical, I mean, this guy stays in good shape. If he has to do a run-in or just some sort of spot or whatever it may be, I feel like he'll always be tied to WWE, very similar to how I was talking about John Cena in the past. Like John Cena is going to be done with wrestling, but then John Cena could still be linked to WWE. I would never expect Batista to go and like do something with AEW, if that makes sense. So that is something to obviously keep in mind. But yeah, this is really good stuff in my opinion. Super excited to see what happens like long term with his Hollywood career as well, just because in general he's got some good stuff coming out. And in our final topic, we're talking about WWE in Saudi Arabia, a major change for an upcoming episode of WWE Raw, according to Worked Wrestling on Twitter, which has been kind of quiet but starting to pick up a little bit more steam again. Worked Wrestling has reported tons of stuff in the past with high accuracy, and Worked Wrestling came out and revealed that an episode of WWE Monday Night Raw will take place in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia this November, and later clarified that it will be taped on Sunday the 3rd and it will air the next day on the 4th. Now, this was the first time that an episode of WWE Raw will air from Saudi Arabia, and honestly, like, I'm very curious. I'm if anything, I am more than curious just to see. I'm more curious just to see how WWE presents this. Is this going to be in the same stadium that WWE films Crown Jewel? Is this going to be at a separate arena in Riyadh? I have no idea. There's obviously very little details here, but we do know that starting next month, the commentary teams are changing, and Joe Tessitore will be commentating with Wade Barrett on WWE Raw. We know Corey Graves and Michael Cole will be the voice of SmackDown until WWE moves Raw to Netflix. I'm very curious to see what WWE does here. Like, how will WWE try and make this episode bigger and better than normal? How will WWE present the episode of WWE Raw? I don't know. Obviously, being that it's taking place in Saudi Arabia, if it's taking place in the same stadium as Crown Jewel and WWE could fill it up, I mean, that would be absolutely massive. The last few times WWE was in Saudi Arabia, the crowd response was actually really good, and I would love to see that continue, especially for an episode of WWE Raw. It would be nice to get more international episodes of WWE Raw and SmackDown. Sometimes we get them from Canada. You know, we did get SmackDown from Puerto Rico at one point. But I want to see WWE like do more of these, especially with the international crowds just being so hot and so awesome. Like, it would be cool to see it. Yes, I don't like pre-taped shows. I've been very adamant about that. It's one of my gripes with TNA, for example. But obviously, time zone difference and logistics and everything like that, it would make sense as to why this would be pre-taped. I'm going to try very hard at that time to avoid spoilers, and I won't be spoiling the show for you guys, whether you're in the Discord or on YouTube or on Twitter. Obviously, that's going to be really important. But yeah, an episode of WWE Raw taking place from Saudi Arabia. I don't know if anybody had that on their list of things that could happen this year. So very interesting to see how that goes. And yeah, by that time, we'll obviously have the new commentary team switch up, which I think is good. Very interesting stuff, guys. I want to know what you guys think. As always, drop a comment down below. And thank you for watching The Ango Show.